Anything can go.
Turn off your background, bro.
Yeah, you got going.
So what about the influence in the northern Levant coming from Syria?
That you see, you got Aramans.
Yeah,
you see, that's the thing, though.
No one's saying there's no other influences. No one's saying that.
Yeah.
What about Proverbs and Psalms? We hear that the Kemet influence it a lot. I hear the Ugaritic influence it a lot. Hold on, let me say this. How much did Kemet influence the Psalms? There's over 150 chapters. How many of those 150 chapters did Kemet influence?
You say that after bringing out that source in your book. Really, Garfield? You're gonna say that after bringing out that source in your book?
Black line, hold on a second. A psalm. Let me ask you, how many psalms did? And please don't say Psalms 84 and Psalms 104. But that's in the script. That's in the Gerald Massey script. We got that already. All right, fine. What other psalms out of the 150 chapters did Kemet influence?
I would have to dig up the ones, but we definitely see. What text was that we pulled up from? It was Sumerian or Babylon.
From Sumerian?
No, the Sumerian and Babylon one. Remember?
Oh, you talking about I remember.
Yeah, the Bible is a copy of a lot of ancient texts. And it's
hit him with his own source.
Right.
Hit him with his own source, Asar. Hit him with that Elmhurst 93. Hit him with that Elmhurst 93. Hit him with his own damn source.
I'm trying to remember the text.
Which one? Elmhurst 63?
That's right. You're done. You're finished. You're over with. You're done.
That is not influenced by Egypt, though.
No.
Oh, yes, it is.
Copying a bunch of cultures.
It comes right out of Egypt. What are you talking about?
I don't get that. How does that help the Egypt argument?
If you put the Psalms up and compare it to that text, what you see it all down the line, and it comes out of Egypt. It's in your book. What are you talking about?
Well, that's not in my book. Well, Amherst 63 is basically the argument is that the group in Amherst in Egypt at that time was writing a version of Psalms that didn't include Zion, the word Zion, and the word Jacob. That was my argument.
Where was it? Oh, in Egypt. You're done. You're finished. When it comes to the Psalms. Done.
I'm not even going to.
You can't. It's in your own source. You can't. I know you're not.
I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue that because I don't know if you get the point. I'm just going to argue because I don't think you get the point.
I don't even know why you brought up the Psalms. It just makes it right. It doesn't make
sense. 63, bro. Remember, you had Egypt. Hold on. Let me break it down. You had Jews that lived in Egypt. They were able to write in Egyptian. So when they're writing in Egyptian, they wrote something called Amherst 63. That we call it that today because, of course, some guy named Amherst found it, and this is probably his 63rd manuscript that he ever found. So Amherst 63 is an Egyptian. It's written in the Demotic, I guess, the Demotic version of it.
Right.
But it's written. Hold on a second, brother. Just because it's written in Egyptian makes it Egyptian. I hope you understand
what you said. Listen to what you said.
Am I making sense?
Give an exact.
No.
Hold on. You guys stop. Hold on. Let me get
Hold on,
brother. Orthodox. Do you know about Amherst 63, bro?
Not enough to speak on it.
You killing me out, boy.
The man said the Jews were in Egypt and they created this, and now he don't see how it's a direct source. I don't understand how you think it, Garfield.
But Garfield, this is what I want to understand, Garfield. So why should we not see overlap in the text if there's overlap in like spiritual tradition, right? For instance, we can see at the prior to the Hyksos, the time of the Hyksos, and after the Hyksos, that there's a multitude of different religions going through Egypt at the time, right? And we can see again, like I'm saying, like with the story of Sinuhe and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? You can see to where like Aten is the top deity, right? This is prior to the Hyksos coming. This is prior to Akhenaten doing the same thing, right? And then at the time, like Amun is not even the top deity in Aries, right? You know what I'm saying?
Let's just give him sources because he wants sources.
Hold
Let's
on,
go.
I'm not trying to start beef. I'm trying to start a conversation, bro.
No, you good. I'm saying he wants sources.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Let's go finish. Hold on. Relax.
I thought more stuff. I'm sorry. I was saying let's just give you some sources.
Hold
That's
on.
what you asking for.
Beloved, hold on. This is like.
Go ahead, Bumpy. You gotta go. Get out the sources. I'll go ahead.
All right.
Okay. Let me source up.
Let me say this. I've heard 653 is Psalms 20. It's written in Egyptian. It didn't originate in Egypt. It's just that they found a manuscript where that is written. It doesn't mean Psalms 20 didn't originate. It's talking about Yahoo and whatever. That's not no Egyptian God.
They were speaking Aramaic.
Exactly. So
Man,
it's,
that's
I
not
don't understand
point.
how. I don't understand how.
Because you won't listen. You won't
All right,
listen. That's why you don't understand.
Go ahead.
You are talking about Jews living in Elephantine.
Hold up, Black Line. I'm gonna just give some sources.
Asar, hold on, Asar. Let Black Line, please let him explain.
Nah, let me get
Yes, I'm gonna be real quick. I'm gonna be real quick.
Let Black Line explain, because nobody.
I'm gonna be real quick. You have Jews living in Egypt at the time of this creation of this papyrus that you just said.
What's the time frame?
4th century BC.
Got you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yes. Before you brought this out, the only thing we had was a memo sources for the Psalms, and I think we had one more, and that was it. Then you bring this out, and you showed a direct connection between these particular Jews and the Psalms, and where this particular papyrus was created. And you still don't understand and see the connection? How is that possible?
All right. First of all, the purpose, Black Line, the Psalms already existed before that date, before that manuscript. What happened is, bro, this is a copy of a Psalms with a completely different tradition that's in today's Psalms. That's the purpose of it. It has nothing to. It's not a connection like Amenio or Psalm 104 or whatever. No, that's saying that. What we're saying.
Let's slow it down.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me do Orthodox more right now. Let me slow it down.
Go ahead.
All right.
Let's slow it down.
Watch it now. You remember Elephantine Jews were living in Egypt from around the 7th century BC, right? They had a temple in Elephantine. Remember we talk about the Elephantine papyri shows us, we don't see it, we see them doing Passover, but it's not connected to the Passover in the Bible. So these are Jews, literal Jews who connected with the Jews in northern Israel, the Samaritans or whoever was there, and they connected with the Jews who were in Judea. They asked them if we could build another temple, get permission to build another temple, and they asked for instructions for different things. Then they had marriages and all type of documents and all that stuff. But anyway, but they were following Passover. But their Passover is not the Passover that we're used to, that we see today. But anyway, another story for another time. Now hold on. Those Elephantine Jews are now writing Psalms 20, but the Psalms 20 that they have is not the same as the Psalms 20 that we have today. It's a Psalms 20 that's missing the word Jacob, and it's missing the word Zion. So you know in Psalms where it says, "Oh, the God of Jacob," it doesn't say the God of Jacob. That's all, bro.
Now, when is the Babylon captivity taking place? When is that?
590 to 538, around that.
But you have Jews in Elephantine at what date?
From 7th century BC.
Okay, I got you now. Go ahead. You're right. I got you.
All right.
Garfield, I've got a question.
Hold up, before we get away from the topic. Let me just give this source, and then we can go further.
Topic, one second.
Hold on,
No, if you're taking the topic, hold tight real quick, Shannon. Let me
are you ready?
Yeah.
You need to share screen?
No, we can just do it from right here.
Go ahead.
You can pull it up. This is the text from Horus, and then let's go Matthew 25, 35 through 36.
You need to show that on the screen. You got to show that on the screen.
Hold up, I got
What is it? Matthew what?
Matthew 25, 35 through 36. and then we'll go to John. I'm just going to read 2 real quick. So from Horace's text, it says, I have given bread to the hungry man, and water to the thirsty man, and clothing to the naked person, and a boat to the shipwrecked mariner. Matthew 25, 35 through 36 says, for I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. Let's go to John 8:12. And another verse from Horace. It says this. It says, I am Horace in glory. I am the Lord of light. I am the victorious one. I am the heir of endless time. Even I am he that know the paths of heaven. John 8:12 says, again Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. They're saying the same thing.
What you gotta say, James Cassell? James Cassell, you up, bro? Parallelomanium on here, bro. Come on, let's go. Let's get it. Come on, man. He does beat y'all up, man. Come on. He got it, y'all, man.
I'm half asleep right now.
Genesis 49.
What he beat us up on? I don't get it.
Get out of here.
What he beat us up? Hey, Asar, what you beat us up on, brother?
Oh, no, you little body shot. It was not, y'all.
I missed it. I don't even know what you beat us up on. You saying that was stolen?
No, he was asking if the scripts
Let him get away with that.
and there's a lot of scripts that are similar.
Oh, man. Orthodox.
Similar to what?
Let him get away with that.
Similar to what, Asar?
To the that's New Testament.
All right, watch out. We got this right here.
Go ahead, bro.
Let's go.
So these are literally debate notes that me and Asar both used in the Television Debate League. We both cite the same sources in terms of what's being talked about or whatnot, right? So we both talked about the hymn to 10, circa 14th century, in its relation to Psalm 104. We both talked the instructions of Amen Mope in circa 1300 to 1075 BC, in its relation to Proverbs 22:17 through 24:22. Hold on. Yeah, and there's some other ones that I missed. But yeah, so something I wanted to talk about that is what I was saying earlier is like, so we should expect to see overlap in certain traditions if there's so for instance, like when I'm talking about like the Aten concept, right? So I'm saying that overlaps in the Bible with the concept of Adonai, and we see a lot of this concept of where Adonai is in these situations in these particular scripts, referring to Egypt and all kind of stuff. Using very similar language in Hebrew, like emet for like ma'at, etc. Right, very similar concepts. Right? So we see multiple different deities or multiple different prophets calling on Adonai as the Most High God, etc. Right, and so again, this is a question. Like so we're seeing overlap. So one, we're seeing overlap with the Aten concept and monolatry in Egypt, right? But also we see the concept of Adon in Canaan and whatnot, right? So this concept of Aten, Adonai, Adon, it's not just central to one area. There's overlap in a lot of different areas. The thing is that every different culture sees this concept differently and practices this concept differently. Right? But again, like so, we do see overlap with Egypt, to where after we like so everyone knows I take a timeline to where I believe that the Exodus happened circa like 1540, etc. Right? So even if you take it after like a 1446 time, like most people do. We're seeing a lot of this literature that's being linked up to the Bible, you know what I'm saying, coming afterwards or representing this concept of monolatry, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like it's not like a fight, like, okay, like you were saying earlier, Garfield, if I got the oldest inscription of Adon, does that mean I win? If I got the oldest inscription of Aten, I mean, no. We're talking about concepts of.
I'm gonna tell you right now, when you go to debate, any of them leagues you go on a debate, you're gonna lose if you ain't got that first argument. That's what they used to, bro. I'm trying to bring them out of that.
So the question is, who does what first, right? Mm-hmm. So is everyone saying that the practices that the Israelites have, the way that they practice their religion, it's the same way everyone else practices? You can talk about similarities all day, but again, who was practicing monotheism and monolatry?
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling me that's what they were doing that in Babylon? They were doing it in Canaan? Like, who was doing that?
Good point.
You have very early Sumerian texts that talk about how at one point all people were worshiping in their glory as the one God.
Between those two, monotheism and monolatry.
Yeah. Why you say Isa?
We're not saying that
Well, that is
we're not saying that they did
Yeah,
something.
let's
early.
hold on 1 second, guys. Isa, I'm sorry, I forgot to come to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mo, how would you explain the difference monotheism and monolatry?
to me, I don't really see a difference, but I'll break it down like this. So monolatry is the recognition of multiple gods, but you only worship only one, which is very similar to the Shema, where you have like Shema Yisrael, Yahweh, Yahweh Ahad, or even with like this one, right? What was that?
That's henotheism, right? We recognize
Henotheism is, hold on, real quick. Hold on. Henotheism is the belief in many gods, right? Monolatry is the belief in many gods, but the worship of only one, like one supreme.
Oh, okay. I thought henotheism was you recognize a bunch of gods, but you only worship,
They overlap. No, no. Like so, monolatry is a form of henotheism, but it overlaps into
Oh,
monotheism.
okay.
Like
So
you
form
only
of
worship one
henotheism.
supreme being.
Gotcha. Okay.
So monotheism, like so.
Can I just put a question? Sorry, this might sound a bit off topic, but it's coming straight back here. With all the PhDs or Doctor of Sciences or whatever kind of grades these guys have got, for all these years, why is it they still remain so amateur in their approach? What do you lot think it is that these Pan-Africanists and Afro-centrists, why they maintain this immature approach to this one subject?
I don't think it's an immature approach. I think it's just somebody living it. They want the lie to continue. All right, this is how I look at it. And I hope, I might lose some subscribers for saying this, but the issue is people want to copy the elders. Everybody who starts a YouTube channel, you want to be heard. You don't make a YouTube channel to say, hey, I only want 3 followers. You want to be heard. So you said, I have a specific message and I want to be heard. Right? Now watch this. Every example we have, and I always say this, and people in the nationalism get mad, they text me when I say this, I blame Elijah Muhammad for this. Because he produced some of the greatest speakers of all time as far as popularity. Muhammad Ali, with Farrakhan, Malcolm X, Khalid comes from under Malcolm, but these great guys who got so popular because of using the biblical text and preaching a message, now everybody wants to do that. So now with the African American community, as far as these Afrocentrics, what happened is you had Sheikh Anta Diop, you had Walter Rodney, and you have Theophilo Obenga. What happened is they were fighting for an African-centered, recognizable Egypt, meaning that the people there were black, originally were black. So what happened is, hold on 1 second, guys, don't move. Hello? All right, Malcolm. All right. So I'm saying to people like Ashra Kwesi, Dr. Ben, right, and Dr. Clark, I have nothing to say about them. I have nothing to say about Walter Rodney. I have nothing to say about all the elders that have died. The issue now is we need to track down what these sources that the elders use. So we don't blame the elders. We blame the sources that they use. So the sources they used was Alfred Boyd Kuhn, they used Gerald Massey, and so on and so forth, right? Christianity Before Christ by our good brother John G. Jackson. And they used Kersey Graves. Now, listen now carefully. Do we attack the elders? No. But what happened is everybody want to be Dr. Ben and carry people to Egypt and charge thousands of dollars and say, oh, this is us. Because it's beautiful over there. But that's just not us. Technically, it's just not us. So I don't want to be a hypocrite and tell Yashub and D-Red and James Cassell, y'all niggas ain't no damn Israelites. Y'all crazy. So how am I going to watch people say they're Egyptians and be quiet? I'd be a hypocrite. So now I'm saying if we're going to stop this, we got to stop the people who are alive right now. Ray Higgins, Ashra Kwesi, and guess who is trying to be like those guys? Jabari Assad. He's now the Michael Jordan of the whole Egyptomania because he's better than all of them. What he does is he actually copies the elders in their speeches. He does. He mimics them. He repeats what Dr. Ben says. Hold on. He repeats what Dr. Ben says. He does trips to Egypt like Dr. Ben. He wants to be Dr. Ben. That's all it is. So he wants to be the continuity. of that
He's
legacy.
supposed to carry his tradition from his elders.
Hold on. But you're carrying on the legacy to carry on the lies.
But that's not a lie. The people in
Horus is
Egypt
Horus
were
is
black.
Horus is
They were
Jesus.
African.
They had three wise men. They had yo, listen, man. Anyway, guys, I gotta go, man. I gotta get out.
I can't with this three wise men stuff.
You're gonna say they weren't black.
It has to be every connection, and that's not no one is saying that.
Right.
I'm asking a story then. Are all Egyptians black?
One step. Garfield.
Let me answer. Sorry, this, please.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Hold on, Genesis. Let Kalam ask me one last question before I go ahead. Go ahead, Kalam.
Jeez, you know what? I don't even know what to ask again. Huh? I don't even know what.
I'll let y'all rock out for a minute. I gotta go do something real quick. All right,
Yeah.
y'all do it.
All right, cool. Sorry.
Listen, Black.
Everybody talk. Let everybody talk.
I got it. Go ahead, 49. Go ahead.
But sorry, are you saying everybody in ancient Egypt was black?
No, but that would be like saying everybody in Greece was white.
Yeah, that's how I'm asking.
Was the majority of the people there were black.
Wait. Hold on. One sec, guys. You lot went off topic. What Garfield last spoke about here, I'm saying my question relates to why these debates have been going on for so many years and there's been no freaking real progress. So all I'm saying is we have to identify what the hell it is with this Afro-pseudo community in which they feel so comfortable to, on one side, come up with all this professional academic qualifications, but on the other side, they're so flipping pseudo and literally amateurish and ridiculous. So I'm going to put on the table, one sec, I'm going to put on the table, one sec, let me put this and then please respond. I'm going to put on the table that one of the reasons is, amongst their so-called African traditions, is that they don't believe necessarily in an afterlife in which you have a heaven or hell, but their afterlife is that their name is mentioned throughout the generations. So therefore, it's kind of, this is one of the things. So therefore, for them, it's to have been someone that has done something and become an ancestor, so that people remember them throughout the generations. Now, is that something you can relate to, agree with, and so on, or no?
I think you're right on the money with that. That is definitely that is close to the, if not the original concept, especially in Africa. But the problem is you have these people like Garfield is talking about stuck in this paradigm, in the Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, and others paradigm, but they can't advance from that. There's so much more information that has come out that some people don't want to look into. They stay right in that paradigm from the 70s and from the 60s instead of going into new found information and new scholarship.
Why though? Why is that? This is what I'm saying. You've got people like Jabari, right? An academic, right? If you look at, for instance, Sheikh Anta Diop, he was a scientist, academic, etc. And he was a person that led the way for, according to your research, you change your view. Do you understand? And this is what they say, but I can't see Jabari and these other people doing that particular thing. So, for instance, when evidence is presented to them, they seem to just waffle rather than actually say, you know what, I'm actually going to change what I was saying based upon the new evidence.
Well, so you're identifying other scholars as the Tamahu, as if that's a derogatory term towards Europeans, then you can't do anything but keep stuck in that paradigm from the 70s. You can't advance your scholarship if you're going to use that type of if you're going to stay with that type of attitude. Truth has no color, and that's one of the first things that Dr. Henry Clark taught us. He said to follow the radical European scholars. So he never was about using color as the linchpin of fact checking. You have to be able to go outside of the of your paradigm in order to get to the full truth. Go ahead.
But Gerald Massey and Godfrey Higgins were Caucasian people, right? And they were major influences in getting black people to believe that we were the founders of civilization, because it generally took, in those days, it took a black man quoting a white man for black people to believe what the black man had to say. If he had just said, well, a black man said this, they wouldn't have believed it. Do you get what I'm saying?
You have, remember, when we were enslaved, you have European authors making these claims. They're writing the books. They're writing the books that Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark are quoting from. We as a people were enslaved at the time.
Correct. And also, not only that, you have to look at the fact that when Marcus Garvey spoke, black people listened. Black people is up across the world listening. So when you look at Europeans who are doing research, who turn around and denote that, hey, some of these guys are lying about the situation, and then you go over there and you see that obviously they're lying about the situation, why would you try to hold on to the Abrahamic faith that sent those Egyptologists over there to find the artifacts for biblical purposes and switch the lie from this to this, when they obviously make statements like what's his name did, and said obviously the Egyptians have Negro blood, but he was paid to make them European sources. And then you
like
go
James
look at
Breasted.
in the Bible.
James Breasted.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Breasted.
You're absolutely right. They are the first Egyptomaniacs. They are the first. The people like James Breasted, Budge, and others. They are the first. And look, they use the biblical narrative to try to do this. This is where people get confused at, because they try to use the biblical narrative in order to promote scientific racism.
Yes.
That's what many of us don't understand.
Your Bible source has the same date as the Egyptian source almost every single time. You know why? Because, yeah, they're dating it off of Egyptian artifacts. What culture do you know goes into another country that's not physically related to them to justify their artifacts? You got people running around here talking about Joseph is Akhenaten. So and so is such and such. But Joseph can't be him, because we know his name. We know that's Akhenaten. We know Akhenaten's story. So when you look at the logic behind saying these Afrocentrists are pseudo, when obviously the people that were there are African descendant and black, and by ancient Greek terms, clearly of an origin different than theirs, and the teachers of those people bringing the source to them, such as when Diodorus Siculus starts to name off Greek participants in Egyptian knowledge. Hold up, family. In Egyptian knowledge, where they got it from and their teachers, why would you think otherwise than an African origin for the Egyptians? And why wouldn't you continue that tradition when you have no problem with these new scholars saying Bruggish did this and they're European and the new European quotes Bruggish?
Especially when it's classified as an African nation.
Let me respond to that.
Egypt is an African nation.
When Afro pseudo, I'm not talking about, because I think Garfield's complaint is very different to mine in regards to that. He's saying, well, they're not Egyptian, they're from West Africa. For me personally, I don't see any real separation between the culture of Kemet and that of Western Central Africa. To me, they're just different expressions through different languages, etc., which become a different culture because of environment and various other things. That's not what I'm calling it.
Well said.
That's not what these are Afro pseudo. The reason why I said Afro pseudo is because they generally pick up a Eurocentric view for them to do a lot of things as right parallel to using an Afrocentric view. That's my complaint. So it's not that I'm saying, for instance, if somebody today, let's say they can trace their blood back to Nigeria, right? So somebody in England or the Caribbean or America, diaspora, and they're 90 whatever percent, Yoruba or Igbo or whatever else. But they prefer today to promote the ideas of Kemet. It will be useful in our struggle because there is a psychological and ideological battle of us getting Kemet back over to be known to be black. If these peckerwood monkeys can make movies called The Exodus and the other one, where the actors of Moses and Pharaoh and so on are Caucasian white without tans, then clearly there still needs to be that battle going on. So I have no problem with Jabari doing that. My whole issue is when you're starting to judge, for instance, the Hebrew Israelites, the Muslims, and even the Christians, and the claims that are not scientific. They're not going about it in the right method. They're misquoting stuff or they're lying. That's my problem. That's the real issue that I have there.
No doubt about it. I have no problem with Jabari bringing African roots into Kemet. I have no problem with that at all. The problem I have with him is trying to create this religious atmosphere as if it's like the Europeans have done with the Bible and putting that on Kemet. Like, for instance, I've asked him this. He's never answered my question. I asked him, what African ever called a hymnetcher, because that's the name of what he calls a priest. What African ever called him a priest? Called a hymnetcher a priest. And he has not answered my question. Because no African has ever put that title on a hymnetcher. A priest. So where does that come from? That comes from Herodotus, a European. He is the one who called the hymnetchers priests, not an African.
Well, hymnetcher
translation,
is basically servant of Netcha, right?
Right, not
nature.
priest.
But
not
if
priest.
you're going to equate it to somebody in English, what would you depict it as? What would you call it in English?
I wouldn't call it a priest myself because I want our ancestors to identify themselves. I don't want to put an English term on an African concept. That's the problem I have with him.
Damn. Right, gotcha. How you going to teach somebody who knows English what they're saying in another language?
I got a better example.
Exactly.
I got a better example. When did the Tomahawk become white people? Or all the white people?
That's a good question too, because
from everything I've heard, that's not even the right term.
It's not even the right location.
Like if you talk to Jaru, if you talk to Asar Imhotep, they're going to tell you that term doesn't apply to Europeans.
No, well, they're westerly. And this is why when we pull up the Marinette Ptah Stela, we have to look at the locations that those places were considered at that time. Same thing with this. When you say the Chenahu, and he calls it Tamahu, but it's clearly written Chenahu, you have to understand where that's at, and that would denote a western location in Africa.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right. So what gives him the right? Hold on, real quick, brother. I want to say this, and it's geared towards you. What gives him the right to just say that information if it's been falsified?
That's a good question.
No one gets it right. The question is, how many people believe a brother who doesn't read the Medu Neter concerning? Now, I respect Brother Jabari and that clique over there. Respect to them. I'm not a Kemetic. I'm a Rametz. Societist, right? But you still have to show respect for what they do. Just like we show respect for what Hebrew Israelites do. We show respect for what Muslims do, for what Christians do. But the only people who give that authority to him are the people who thinks what he says is correct.
I have no respect for anyone who tries to put a European spin on African concepts. That's my problem.
Bro, you have to translate. You have to listen. There has to be until the big
took it, and then she took the word Kemetic, which is not even a Medu Neter word, and she calls it Orthodox Kemetics, right? So now something that started in the black community has been usurped, and it still has nothing to do with the connection to ancient Kemet other than some of the rituals. What they're doing are the rituals for the dead. which some of those people's rituals for the dead equate to being what you would do for those who are alive as well, as the book of Coming Forth by Day says that. But not all of them are. And some of them have, what you would call interpolations, as you pointed out, Brother Issa. But when it comes to, is there text for all these things? Yes, there is. Do they have the text, and are they moving in that direction? Sorta.
This is my issue, bro. My issue is not them building a community. What I'm saying is, it is very different when you are literally almost like the prophets of that system, because you're building it from scratch. If you're dealing with Kemet, if you're dealing with voodoo, there's already, thousands or millions of people practicing voodoo. If you go to the Ifa system, there's people practicing that system. But I'm saying with Kemet, you're literally, starting from scratch. And there's obviously
because like I said, there's rituals that are shown on the wall. So they give you, you got instructionals for a lot of this stuff. It's not like
a lot of information. They left a lot of information for us to see what kind of culture they were a part of.
Yeah, this is not like.
My point is, why don't we just leave them to themselves? Let them have their culture. Let the other people have their culture and leave it there, and not remix it into what we want it to be.
But
that's the problem I have.
Isa comes from Islam. And in Islam, you can't just hop up and say, I'm an imam, right? You have to have a chain. You have to have the, it's not. What? In ancient...
Wait, let me say it.
I already know you're going. I'm just saying, for the record.
Wait, listen. Say it. Even though whatever's on the walls, I'm saying we don't have a living community based upon, you don't have a government, don't have, hunting, you don't have the way of life of Kemet. In Kemet, or even further away from Kemet, speaking the language and so on, which these brothers are bringing back. So I'm saying their job is much harder and much bigger. You get me? So here's an example. Dr. York, I don't really want to give his example, but let's say if Dr. York had succeeded without all the problems that happen in that community, and he managed to get them speaking, let's say, a language from Kemet, you would have now had a community living based upon that. Do you get what I'm saying? So if Jabari, for instance, managed to get 100,000 people following him, and he's the main man, and he has the government, and he has whatever else, the next generation, that would be a new religion. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm saying because...
there's an issue with saying that, though. Because when you say that, there's things, right? You have to understand that Hebrew Israelites don't have a home, right? They got a small spot in Dimona. They're not governed by their own rules. They're governed by Israeli law. So you can't say that Hebrew Israelites aren't a practicing group based off of that. They're just not maybe respected by some. Same thing with the Kemetic community. They're practicing. It's just not respected by all because you don't see a country backing. You don't see a flag waving.
Bro, with the Hebrew Israelites, they've already got a book called the Bible, which has always had a practicing community. There hasn't been a chain where these people haven't been practicing it. Do you get what I'm saying? Ever since that Bible's there's been people practicing whatever it is. How many hundreds of different sects and whatever else they broke into is irrelevant. I'm saying they've continued to practice it. So when
the problem with that is they're not practicing the same form of Judaism from the 12th century BCE as of today.
Right.
That's the problem.
Going on with them.
Even then you have different forms of Judaism. You have the Sadducees, you have the
different sects.
All these different sects of Judaism going on.
My point is the important role that people like Jabari have. Because even when Asar saying there's a community and so on, they don't, like for instance, the Hebrew Israelites, Nation of Islam, they've all got an economic system. They've got a whole thing where you were talking about they're under a government in Dimona. I'm saying, I guarantee you, the law of their community affects the people and being shunned and all the rest of it, embarrassed and shamed, much more than the laws of the land. You'll find a culture of a community affect you. For instance, the Jews in a community in London, they hardly commit crime. Do you think it's because of the law and fear of going to prison? No, it's because you shame the family if you do certain things. Same with a lot of Asians and Arabs. It's not because you're going to go to prison and the police are going to arrest you, but you'll be shunned and outcast by the family. That's much more powerful than the threats of so many years in prison. Do you see what I'm saying? So in the community of the Hebrew, that's what they have. So likewise, I'm saying when the Commission community have that unity, where there's thousands of people following one particular man, one particular interpretation, then we're going to see something. But all I'm saying is, with people like Jabari, who at the moment, are like a new representative, almost like a prophet in his community, right? For the people that follow him, right? If he gets successful, I'm saying this is where the problems arise, where he could be starting a community, which they themselves are pretenders to being factual, scientific, and true, and on ma'at, when in fact they're not. That to me is the big problem.
And that's not always that's not what you see today. As far as what you said, you don't see them committing a lot of laws. You have Jewish kingpins, bro, drug kingpins that are Jewish, from a Jewish background. This is a fact. You have Jews in the past who was involved in the slave trade. You have Jews that has done all kind of atrocities to mankind outside of themselves. This is a fact. So it's not always been this commitment to the culture as you're painting it out. You have people that don't follow those traditions. As a matter of fact, they can't stand those traditions that are Jewish.
Wait. We're getting it wrong. I'm not saying the people will be righteous and so on. All I'm saying is
but that's how it sounds. But go ahead.
No. All I'm saying is that the community they've got a living culture, which is that, okay, for instance, if you go to Saudi Arabia, they are living, their whole life has something to do with Islam. Even the sins have a context to Islam, which in another culture is not a sin. Do you see what I'm saying? So everything is 180 degrees times 180 degrees to do, or 360 times 360 to do with Islam. I'm saying the culture, the mentality, everything else is lived in relation to Islam and the Quran. Whereas the Commission community, they don't have that yet. And I'm saying Jabari himself is a prophet, if you like, to this community. And it needs to be. So in other words, what I'm saying is what Garfield is doing, I think is a good thing, where he's pointing out these lots of double standards. And it needs to be dealt with. Because they have for instance, Garfield put something to Jabari. Black Jesus put something to Jabari. And it was to do with the historicity of Jesus, right?
Right.
And the scholastic community agree that Jesus existed, but they don't agree with black. Now, the thing was that Black Jesus pointed out, he said, well, that's nothing to do with the conversation. And I keep finding this is what Afrocentric, Afro-pseudos keep doing. If the conversation on the table is whether he existed or not, stick to the subject. Don't add another point to it, whether he's black or not. And that's what they keep doing.
Point. That's a fantastic point, because I had a problem with that myself. When that question was answered, everybody should just say yes. Yes, the consensus says there is a historical Jesus, and left it at that. But they had a problem with just admitting that fact. And what you're saying is absolutely the reason why they did, because they wanted to stick to that type of paradigm. And I'm saying that is poor methodology. You must step into the 21st century and update your scholarship in order to have these type of conversations. Otherwise, you're going to sound just like you just described.
Well, like check this. I think
in the 70s.
That's why all communities.
Hey, hold on, man. Hold on 1 second. I got Asar in here. I know he can't stay long. What's up, Asar? What's on your mind, bro? I know you saw a point. You want to jump in and beat up Isa on, but go ahead. Come on.
Asar.
Together for your fundraising infrastructure.
Who's this?
So
I saw who?
fundraising.